Well, if you don't believe everything you see on TV, you are not alone. Turns out that Americans' trust of the U.S. media has hit a record low. Take a look at this recent Gallup poll. 60% of those polled say they have little or no trust in the U.S. media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly. The survey was conducted between September 6th and September 9th. So why are Americans losing the faith? Well, there's this.
The individual mandate has been ruled unconstitutional.
Justices have just gutted, Wolf, the centerpiece provision of the Obama health care law.
Yeah, if in fact that's the final word on the individual mandate, it could be a little bit more complicated.
We're getting conflicting, less than critical headlines.
I get the feeling, take a look at this, that Mitt Romney has not been in too many Wawas along the roadside in Pennsylvania.
And it's a quick look at what President Obama's been up to. Arg, here he is, sitting down with the pirate, making sure he didn't forget to mark International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
We know celery actually emits a hormone in men's sweat that actually tracks women.
Fans are going crazy over these must-have souvenirs. Olympic pins date back to 1896.
The question for you this morning, where was God in Aurora?
Well, to talk more about what is going on in the mainstream media and why Americans aren't liking it, I'm joined now by Georgetown University journalism professor Christopher Chambers. Christopher, nice to see you.
Good to see you again.
All right, so we have approval ratings for the media at a record low. Why are Americans growing unhappy with the media?
Well, there are two stories here. One pretty negative and pretty cynical, and some of it we've seen before, and then some that's actually pretty promising. The introduction to this story, you saw just multiple illustrations of not just how unfair and biased certain outlets are, but that the overarching problem is not any kind of political bent, but the kind of dumbing down of the news product and news content all the way around. Not just least common denominator programming for, we want to reach the biggest morons so we can sell our advertising to them. The content has been watered down to bite-sized chunks so that there can be sort of a messaging thing with advertising, so that there can be it can fit the corporate model, so you're investing less in the news product so you can rehash it more, toss it off to the evening talk shows. Just dumb. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that. Dumb sells. Dumb is cheap. So dumb is what's going to lead. And so you have that. So people are turned off by that. The other part is it goes back to the bias sort of thing. And you do have segments of this population, and the Gallup poll was particularly Republicans. The drop was precipitous. I mean, it was big with people who are identified as Democrats, but with Republicans, it was a cliff that was leapt off of. And that is, that can be attributed really to paranoia about news coverage. I mean, they don't think that their story is being told. Their story might be the result of again, paranoia, cognitive dissonance. They just cannot imagine somebody like the president being the president. Conspiracy theories, but there are some stories that are legitimate, such as some of the things that happened in Libya. But I mean, for the most part, it is just a psychic and sociological sort of block that they have, and so because they feel their story isn't being told, their drop was even more precipitous. But then you see people identify as Democrats, so it's partisanship and stupidity, if you want to boil it down to those two stories.
And you had mentioned Republicans seem to be more unhappy. In addition to Republicans, also independents were up there. Why do you think that is? Well,
theirs is more the stupidity of the news product. The content is being molded to a cheaper and cheesier deliveries, not only delivery system, but the content itself, sorry. And, so you have the delivery system might be some host-driven show that gets the toss from the news shows during the day, but the news shows aren't covering anything hard and doing any analysis at all. So that stuff gets kicked up to the talk shows where the real opinions and fights and theatrics are taking place, and independents get turned off by that. So for them, it's not, it is the quality of the content that's being compromised. For people who are more partisan, it is that typical trend that we've seen, especially from the election of 2008, and then has just gone supernova the last 2 years. The bright spot, however, is that how independents are treated does become that intro to the bright spot. And the bright spot is it's a global phenomenon that younger people, say ages 25, that demo and younger, they're tuning out of the mainstream media, but they're looking at other delivery systems, other technological, other means of looking at TV. Like, you don't need a TV, as RT says, to watch TV. They're looking at alternative news sources that can do independent reporting. And then that independent reporting is put on digital platforms, primarily in social media, and blasted out to everybody. And it's a handheld universe as well. A lot of the people who are upset about the media, especially in that Republican demographic, it tends to skew old. And these are people who are going to now right-wing websites to find news. And it's not really news. A lot of it is gossip and conspiracy theories. So they've abandoned TV and newspapers and gone to these sites. But these sites aren't really giving them news either. Younger people are abandoning TV, to some extent newspapers, but the sites of the newspapers, they're still following for the original stories that they can then put on social media and blast out to their friends and constituent groups. So it's an interesting phenomenon.
So amid the findings in this recent survey, do you think this now gives an opportunity for other media outlets aside, from the mass media outlets to step in and play more of a role?
Oh, sure. I mean, you have outlets such as RT that are taking bigger share. I mean, not just in traditional TV, but the social media digital aspect of TV, where you don't need a TV, you can watch it in the palm of your hand. And Current TV and other, you have the launch of Huffington Post's live station. On the right wing, so to speak, you have Pajamas Media and some of the smaller Breitbart outlets that are starting their own web TV stations. So, you have something for that crowd as well. But for the most part, you're seeing a traditional model where you have traditional TV that's breaking the news, that's sending out for, doing original reporting. You have sites such as ProPublica and Neiman Labs that are doing their own original reporting, and traditional magazines that have gone digital, like Mother Jones, more or less, that are doing original reporting. And they are feeding the social media platforms that then shoot it out to people who are looking for this, who are trying to mine this content, and and they're staying away from curation too. I mean, some of these sites are basically curating other people's work. Well, they're going directly to these new media outlets that are doing original reporting and then shooting it out through social media directly to the universe, not some site that collects it, curates it, like Gawker or something like that. I mean, that's what you're seeing, and what we're seeing at Georgetown with the metrics that Gallup looked at is that people are doing that kind of curation thing for, to look for entertainment or sports or gossip. But for news, they're looking at these new outlets that are doing original reporting and then putting it on social media and blasting it out into the universe. So that's the promising side. That's the non-cynical side.
And lastly, do want to ask you, because we are in the thick of everything in terms of the election.
Right.
It's an election year, and it is during these election years that more people do usually turn in to find out what's going on the national level.
Right.
But this survey also found that less people are turning in to national politics, tuning in to learn about national politics on the news this year as opposed to 2008. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of it's fatigue, because you've had PACs and super PACs and other organizations that have been, it used to be peppering the public airwaves. Now it's blanketing, suffocating, shrouding with largely negative ads. So there's suffocation there. There's a fatigue and suffocation factor. But I think a lot of it is people are looking at these alternate news sources. They might tune in for a story on TV or read something in the newspaper or go on the magazine or newspaper site. But then they take that initial information and boom, they're looking at what people are tweeting, et cetera, et cetera. They're going on YouTube to find the full video rather than the gloss of it that they might have seen on the host-driven show.
All right, Chris. Pleasure as always. We are
Thank
running
you.
out of time. That was Christopher Chambers, journalism professor at Georgetown University.